For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben Jochen. I'm asking you to write in my name for U.S. Senate this upcoming general election, November 8, 2016. If you haven't, I ask you to visit and share my website, www.writeinbenjochen.com. Jochen is spelled J-O-B-G-E-N. On the site there are links to my Facebook page and YouTube channel. If you agree with what you read and see, I ask you to share those sites as well. One of the more common questions I've been asked is, why are you doing this? In February I kept telling others, if and when it becomes Hillary and Donald Trump, I'm going to run for president. I just couldn't believe that the primary and caucus processes would yield this result. Polls indicate significant distrust of both. I knew this would be the ugliest campaign season by far and would epitomize the worst in U.S. politics. As the two became the presumptive nominees, I started to become more serious about following through with this remark. Therefore, I began to research what it would take to get my name on the ballot. I realized to do so would be insurmountable and likely a futile effort. I also realized I had no desire to hold the position referred to as a leader of the free world. After all, I feel that whomever holds this title requires a certain charm and eloquence to motivate a nation, while maintaining an ego to shrug off constant scrutiny. I know I don't have that kind of speaking ability. Also, my skin is thick, but not that thick. Therefore, I was convinced that I could not be president and began to redirect my attention. I did not turn my attention to local or state government. Instead, I kept my focus on the federal level, remembering the system of checks and balances between the executive and legislative branches. I began researching the congressional positions, the Senate and House of Representatives, because that is where I feel there's the biggest disconnect with the American people. After all, our Congress can't pass a balanced budget, they vote for their own raises, don't set term limits despite a public sentiment to do so, they avoid meaningful campaign finance reform, they pass laws from bills filled with complicated amendments and stipulations that do not directly support the intent of the initial bill, and lastly, they enact laws that appear to serve the needs of special interests instead of those of the U.S. people. All of this is what I believe has led to an appallingly low congressional approval rating. If you look at the Gallup polls for June, July, and August, there was a respective approval rating of 16%, 13%, and 18%. While performing this research and coming to these realizations of my own displeasure, I became aware that the strengths I believe I possess match demands placed upon those of Congress. First, I'm able to conform to a set and system of rules. While I want to do something atypical, what I am planning is within the confines of an operating procedure and not some sort of revolution. Second, I possess the willingness to debate for the purpose of determining the most appropriate solution to a problem. Unlike current members of Congress who appear to debate just so they can grandstand and look good for their party. Lastly, I feel a sense of duty to defend those that truly require it, which translates into being able to represent the interests of the people of Iowa as well as the U.S. So after coming to the realization that I have the personal qualities to be a member of the U.S. Congress, I needed to choose which chamber. Now, the House of Representatives seats are up for election every cycle, as they have just 2-year terms. The House is also a more active chamber, as they initiate the majority of the bills and they typically spend less time to debate and vote on such bills. The Senate typically schedules longer periods of time to debate their bills. While I do like to debate, I prefer to take my time to review all sides of the issue at hand. The Senate also differs from the House in that there are less members, meaning a senator's vote has proportionally more weight than the members of the House. The last difference between the chambers is terms for Senate are 6 years. This is more appealing to me, as that provides more time to be able to work and less time having to worry about campaigning. I must digress for just a moment. One of my biggest pet peeves with the U.S. Congress is members appearing to be campaigning more than they're in Washington legislating. This is multiplied even more so when they campaign for another job such as the presidency. See Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Bernie Sanders, for example. I feel that if you're taking that time away from your job, then you should resign from that position while campaigning for the other position. Then, if you're not elected to the position which you seek, you should have to fight and work to gain the trust of the people by getting their vote the next election cycle. So now that I'm off that soapbox, I must return to my previous points, as they made me realize the Senate would be more suitable fit for me. It just so happened that the U.S. Senate seat was up for election in Iowa. The seat is currently held by Charles Grassley, and is a position that has been held since him being initially elected in 1980. This gentleman, I believe, has been a good representative for Iowa, but I believe he also epitomizes part of what I believe is wrong with Congress. First, he's a career politician with 36 years in the U.S. Senate. I believe we need term limits for our congressional members. Second, he had recently demonstrated his ties to the special interests, aka the Republican Party, when he and other Republicans refused to hold a Senate hearing for President Obama's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Garland. Instead of doing their job, these members of Congress choose to play political games and hope their party will win the presidency so they can appoint a justice of their liking. I won't even get started about how the third branch of the federal system of checks and balances, the Supreme Court, is supposed to be nonpartisan. So after deliberating about whether this was a realistic opportunity, I came to the final answers of why I want to do this. Going down this road would be an extreme challenge, as I would have to work to reach a majority of the approximately 2 million registered voters in Iowa. There have been many challenges I have accepted in my life, and many I have shied away from. The regret of those decisions to not accept certain challenges is something that occasionally distresses me. So as the words of Jim Miller, my Hall of Fame college wrestling coach, were ringing in my ears, I decided I need to not set any limits and go out and fight. This challenge also provides me an opportunity to learn. I've been asking, why does our Congress do the things they do? That question has forced me to research the various processes of our government and really evaluate the philosophical models for how a society should function. I believe we can all agree that there is nothing wrong with people doing more to educate themselves. While evaluating the various philosophies, I also had a revelation that I truly enjoy helping others. After all, every day I go to work as a physical therapist with the goal of helping others feel better and function at a higher level. I had acknowledged that belief before, but never gave it its full due. I hearkened back to an episode of the popular 1990s sitcom Friends, in an episode which the characters Joey and Phoebe argued about there being no such thing as a selfless good deed. Ultimately, we need to realize that there is nothing wrong with gaining pleasure from helping others. We all have the need to feel a sense of accomplishment. And if that feeling comes from helping others, then the world can only be a better place. Since there is nothing wrong with the satisfaction of helping others, as I mentioned, I decided to take that commitment to a grander scale. There is nothing much bigger of a venue to assist people than our federal government. After all, as I learned in high school government class, our government is supposed to do for us what we can't do for ourselves. I hope you all realize that I have put considerable thought into this effort, and am doing so with the sincerest objectives. I know I am doing something unique, but feel we must do something atypical to send the most effective message. I ask that you continue to do your research this election cycle. Also, I ask that if you agree with my message, that you share the information I provide, so that this message can reach the majority of voters in Iowa. Lastly, I hope as a nation we are active enough to learn about the candidates up for election and vote for those that truly possess the ability to govern in a manner that represents the needs of the people. Thank you.